I've never been into porn growing up. It was one of those things that I just did not care about. I just didn't care about it. Even though all my friends were talking about it, I just did not care. Even, I'm not sure, it might have been because maybe I was late, had a late puberty stage, or I had a late development stage. I don't know why. It's just something I was not interested in. And then university is kind of where my life changed. Party and sex became one of my main priorities. Alcohol became an escape, and parties was a means to meet women and have sex with them. And COVID happened, and I can no longer meet women, you know what I mean? Then COVID happened, I think that happened with everybody. You can no longer meet with people in person, and the world went into isolation. I picked up, and then out of habit, out of curiosity, I picked up porn to satisfy my urges, my cravings for sex, and out of boredom sometimes too. I just picked it up just out of curiosity because I was bored most of the time. And I started watching porn like once a week. I would watch it once a week. Then it went to 2 to 3 times a week, until it became a daily routine where I could find myself scrolling for hours trying to find the right video to watch and like to bust a nut to. But I noticed it was affecting my day-to-day routine. I tried to cut it off altogether. But then a few days go by, I notice I have like these cravings coming up, and like most, I give in, right? I give in to the urges, my cravings. And my pride at the time, my pride didn't want to accept like I had an addiction, right? I didn't want to accept it. Like I was like, me having an addiction, like nah, it can't happen. Like it's not possible. And after over the months, it became more and more obvious I did. Like it was like a cycle. I just kept, I would give in, regret. And then after that regret, I would say to myself, oh, I'm gonna quit. And then I would just give in to my cravings. I'm like, okay, so I definitely have an addiction, right? I repeat the cycle of abstaining and indulging in videos more times than I can count. I hated the fact that this thing was taking control of my life. It felt like my life was becoming stagnant. Like it just stood still just because of this one thing. I couldn't make any progress towards my goals. You know what I mean? I couldn't make progress. And it finally took me 2 years to finally understand addiction and like how to overcome it, how to actually overcome it. Like it took me that long. And I made this video. Maybe some other people are feeling this type of way. Maybe they feel like they haven't made progress, or they're not even aware of the bad habit. This is why I made this video. Andrew Huberman, he once said on a podcast that really stuck out to me, addiction is the progressive narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure. So basically, in simpler terms, it just means the more addicted you are to a substance or behavior, the less other things will bring you pleasure in life. So think about it for a second. Go eat a pleasurable meal like McDonald's or pizza, then go eat some broccoli right after. I can guarantee you the broccoli is gonna suck compared to the McDonald's. It's gonna suck even more compared to the McDonald's. You're just gonna be like, oh man, why am I eating this? This is ass. Like this is trash. You know, this is ass. Like why am I eating this? Why am I eating this broccoli right now? Right after you just ate the McDonald's. You know what I mean? And this is the reason. The thing is, I want the broccoli to taste good. I want the salad to taste good. I want the nutrient benefits of eating it. Plus, I want to have the motivation and drive to consistently eating it on a day-to-day basis. Like who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want the motivation and drive to eat salad every day and plus have the nutrient benefits that come with it? You know what I mean? I want the motivation and drive to do the hard work as well. Like I don't want to be a slave to my own self-destroying habits. I want to be able to enjoy the simple things in life without having a need or an urge for the fast entertainment or the porn or the sex, or you know what I mean? I want to be able to enjoy a walk outside without having an urge coming into my mind. You know what I mean? That's what I want. And this is kind of where the problem lies for most of us, because we want these things, but our wants are not a direct correlation with our actions. Right? And how can I enjoy doing work? How can I enjoy doing work if I'm constantly watching porn every day for entertainment, right? So let me break it down to you. So before I even get into how to get my actions realigned, let me explain to you what dopamine is first. And to beat your addiction, you need to first understand what this is. Andrew Huberman has said, dopamine is a universal currency for foraging and seeking, right? Dopamine dictates how you feel right now and how you feel later. It is your level of motivation and desire to push through effort. It is how we remember how much we enjoyed a particular experience in the past. It shapes our perceptions of life itself. Like this is how important it is. Like it shapes our perceptions. Like if you're not even aware like what perception is, just think about it like this. When I say there's two people, we're seeing the exact same thing, but how we perceive it are totally different. We might see the same thing, but how we see it or how we interpret it in our mind is completely different, right? As we live in our day-to-day life, we release a steady amount of dopamine, right? We can call this like our baseline, right? Our baseline's like this. We release it like every day. Even if we're not doing anything, that's just how much we're releasing on a day-to-day, right? And when we experience pleasurable moments outside of ourselves, our dopamine rises, or peaks. This is that feeling that we get when we feel good, or that pleasurable feeling that we get. But the thing is, this feeling doesn't last forever. It lasts for like 10 seconds. It can last for 30 minutes. It can last for a few hours, actually. It really depends what activity you're doing or what behavior, what substance you're doing. It really depends. And as you may know, whatever goes up must come down, right? When we experience those crashes, we're often unmotivated, maybe we're feeling tired, or in some cases like even depressed, right? Like, and this is like more severe, right? More severe. I think it's like severe induced depression just from, you know, like too much fast entertainment, too much instant gratification, right? And this is normal. This is normal. Like, it's normal to feel tired after a really good meal or like after a really pleasurable thing. This is normal. But the problem lies in how often we're doing these activities. The ones who engage in pleasurable activities or behaviors all the time are the ones who are usually bored or unmotivated to do other things, right? The more times we indulge in an activity or behavior that we're addicted to, the less pleasurable it may seem after a while. I want you to think about it for a second. When you play a new video game, you're probably having time of your life when you're first playing it for the very first time of your life. You're like enjoying it a lot. But after the third, fourth hour, you're not enjoying it as much. Like, you're like, oh, I can kind of put it down now. Like, I'm tired now. Like, it wasn't as good as like when you first got it for those first 30 minutes of the game. And to top it off, the things you used to enjoy probably don't give you the same amount of enjoyment as it did before, right? And this happens as a result of the brain trying to rebalance itself from the excess dopamine you've been receiving from your previous pleasurable activities, right? It's shutting down the production of its own dopamine, right? Your brain is shutting down production. While your brain is trying to rebalance itself, you're most likely going to be having cravings, right? Cravings are like a telltale sign where like it just means you're addicted to something. Like, this is just a sign that you're addicted to a behavior or like anything, you know what I mean? And overcoming your cravings is the first step to take control of your life. Let me give you 5 steps to overcome your cravings. The first step is to become aware of your triggers. Triggers can be anything. It can be anything that sets you off. This is the thing that gives you intense desire or craving to indulge in your addicting behavior, right? These triggers are associated with memories on how exciting your addiction was before, right? And these memories or cravings, they shift your brain from your frontal cortex into your midbrain activation. So basically, when your brain shifts from your frontal to your midbrain, it went from automatic to manual, right? When you're in automatic mode, you rely on your most habitual habits. You rely on what's just routine for you. You're like, it's kind of like your presence, but you're not really conscious of what you're doing in the moment. And it has nothing to do about your willpower at this point. It has nothing to do about that. It has nothing to do about your self-worth or anything like that. To prevent from going into automatic mode, you need to cut off your triggers. But before that, you need to know what they are, right? You need to know what your triggers are so you can cut them off, right? And the triggers can range from anything. They can be people, time, emotional states, locations, sounds, odor, objects, stress. Almost anything is a trigger, right? And it's why it's important to know what they are and to cut them off or limit them as much as possible. The second step is to handle your cravings, right? So as much as we want to cut off triggers, cravings are going to happen from time to time, right? And to handle these cravings, there are 2 techniques you can use. Number 1 is something called a mindfulness technique called urge surfing. The second is to substitute your craving, so with good dopamine, right? Let me talk to you about the first step, right? So let me just explain to you, trying to fight your urges, right? Trying to fight your urges is as useless as telling someone who's mad to calm down. It never works, right? It never works. If you tell someone who's mad to calm down, they're gonna actually get even more mad, right? So with urge surfing, you just focus on your breath, right? When you have a craving, you just focus on your breath and you breathe out, right? You just ride out the urge, right? When you notice you have these thoughts of your craving or your whatever it may be, you just breathe in, breathe out. You don't give in to your craving, but you just let it ride. You just let it ride. And I provided a link down below on how to urge surf correctly, right? The second way is to substitute your craving or urge with good dopamine. So when we're actually having a craving or urge, our brain doesn't actually want to do the activity or behavior. It's actually craving dopamine. Our brain just wants dopamine, right? So we're giving it what it wants, but we're doing it on our terms. We're giving it good dopamine, right? So we can get dopamine from anything, right? We can get good dopamine from good dopamine. An example of this, it could be like socializing with a friend, maybe even a hobby. I wouldn't advise this, maybe even playing a video game if it all comes down to it, but I don't really advise that. Just because it's like instant gratification. It's just maybe like you can get addicted to video games pretty easily, right? Let's be honest here. So I wouldn't advise video games, but socializing, hobby, exercising, these are good things to be addicted to, or even good hobbies to do, right? So these are just some things you could do, like to substitute with. The third step is to avoid foods that are inflammatory. Foods that are highly inflammatory are linked to mood swings. There have been studies to show that fatty, such poor diets are linked to higher signs of depression. And I want you to think back, right? Let's just think back to a time when you ate a highly fatty meal. This can be McDonald's, pizza, junk food, anything. It could be anything, right? After you finished eating, you probably felt tired, lazy, unmotivated. Doing the hard work was actually impossible to do during this time. Your brain will shut off, and then you actually go into automatic mode. Like you're more likely to go into this mode, and this is the mode we don't want to go. We don't want to go into automatic mode. We want to go into manual mode, where it's like we're actually thinking, we're actually conscious of what we're doing, right? The fourth step is to replace your instant gratification habits with delayed gratification, right? So I want to make a distinction right now between instant gratification and delayed gratification. I've said it a few times here, but if you guys don't understand, it's okay. I'll just tell you right now. So instant gratification is the urge to satisfy craving right away without considering its long-term effects, right? So this can be video games, watching TV, Netflix, eating junk food. These are just urges, like cravings that we do. Like these are things we do normally, to be honest with you. 90% of people do, you know what I mean? And while delayed gratification is the act of resisting impulse to take immediate available reward in the hope of obtaining a long-term reward in the future. Delayed gratification is the hard work that we're putting in, right? So this can be like studying, making videos, or I don't know, reading a book. It can be anything that can give us a reward in the long term, right? It doesn't give us a reward right away, but in the future, it's gonna give us a reward, some type of reward, right? That's what we hope for. The thing is, if you try to abstain from your addiction by using your time to indulge in instant pleasures, you'll most likely be ending up replacing your older habit, your older bad habit, with a newer habit. You need to focus on delayed habit. While you're abstaining from these habits and mostly your addiction, you're gonna find yourself bored a lot of the times. I'm gonna be honest, you're gonna find yourself bored a lot of the times. That's why it's very tempting to, to play a video game, to watch TV, or to do anything. Like your mind is just bored and you're actually craving dopamine. You want dopamine, right? So like these are just two deadly combos at the same time. So you have to, just be aware, be conscious of what you're doing. And this is why many of the reasons too why people start taking addiction or partake in a bad addiction is because they're just bored. You know what I mean? That's how addiction starts most of the time, out of curiosity or boredom. Last step finally is to experiment with what works for you, right? I can give you all the information you'd ever need, but the most important thing for you is to try and see what works for you, right? What works for me might not work for you, right? Try different good dopamine activities, different foods that reduce inflammation, so you find a routine, a meal that you like, meditation techniques, noting down all your emotional or physical triggers as you become aware of them, right? The thing is, you might take all of this in, but you won't act, right? And acting is the first step to all of this. I think what Pablo Picasso said one time, action is the foundational key to all success, right? Treat your life as a project. Gain knowledge, like in this video or this newsletter, however you're reading it. Set a goal for yourself. So say your goal is, I want to quit my addiction in 2-3 years. Implement this advice, and the last step is just see what works for you. See what works for you, and if it doesn't work, go back to the drawing board, gain more knowledge, and keep implementing it. It's like a routine. Just keep doing it until you finally, quit. Like, you know what I mean? So it's a long process, but hey, whatever. Usually, what's worth it isn't easy, right? So yeah, that's all I gotta say.